Boa noite.
Hola.
Hey, Nate.
Ah,
Hola.
how's it going?
How are you doing?
Good.
Good?
How are you?
Great, great. Just 1 second. I believe it's going to be better. Just 1 second,
Sure.
please.
Flip this. Maybe a little better. Nah. Trying to figure out the best
All
way to set
right.
the guy up.
First of all, thank you so much for accepting our invitation. It's
Absolutely.
great
Oh, my pleasure.
talking to you. Fantastic. What I'm going to do, first, I'm going to explain to people who are here, lots of people joining, I can see, what I'm going to ask you or translate your answers, all right? So just be a little bit patient when I speak Portuguese, but
Sure.
I think it's going to work well.
Hopefully, I learned
All
some
right.
Portuguese in the process too.
Let's see. I want to ask you what you learned from Ítalo. Boa noite, pessoal. Então, eu estou combinando aqui com o Nate que a gente vai fazer da seguinte forma: eu vou fazendo as perguntas para ele, eu falo para vocês antes o que eu vou perguntar, pergunto e depois eu vou traduzindo dentro do possível as respostas, tá bom? All right. First of all, let me ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself. How was your upbringing? You're from Nebraska, right?
Yes, middle of the country from Nebraska.
Wonderful, wonderful. How was your experience growing up in Nebraska?
So yeah, born and raised in Nebraska. The city that I'm from is Omaha. It's kind of really the only
Omaha.
big city in Nebraska. Most of Nebraska is a lot of farmland, and it's what they call a flyover state. There's not a whole lot of exciting stuff coming out of Nebraska.
Okay.
Part, but no, I love my upbringing there. My parents both were also born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska. My dad was a firefighter, also a paramedic for the Omaha Fire Department. My mother was a preschool teacher. I had two older brothers. My whole life, I was very involved in athletics. I played football, baseball my whole life. I wrestled when I was in grade school for a long period of time. And I was lucky enough to actually get a college football scholarship to play in college and kind of help pay for that a little bit too. And so, yeah, and just pretty typical upbringing, I'd say. Very fortunate that I came from sort of the upbringing that I did. Yeah, so
you got a scholarship playing baseball.
I got a football
Wonderful.
scholarship to play at a small college it was in Sioux City, Iowa, so not too far, about 2 hours away from home for me.
In Iowa, you said, right?
Yep, northern Iowa.
All right. Can I translate that for
the people
absolutely. Here?
I forgot about the whole
Let me go ahead.
Go ahead.
Então, pessoal, eu pedi para ele começar falando um pouquinho sobre ele, de onde ele é, como é que foi a vida dele até aqui, né? Ele nasceu no Nebraska. Nebraska é um estado localizado no centro dos Estados Unidos, muito campo, talvez dê para comparar com os nossos estados aqui onde tem mais do sertanejo, digamos assim. Ele disse que a única cidade um pouco maior lá é Omaha, onde ele nasceu, cresceu e vive até hoje, né? O pai dele foi bombeiro, trabalhou como paramédico, a mãe professora, e ele sempre, a vida inteira, participou de eventos esportivos. Então, jogou futebol, beisebol, luta livre. E uma coisa interessante, ele ganhou uma bolsa de estudos jogando futebol para fazer a faculdade em Iowa, que é um estado que fica próximo a Nebraska. Thank you, Nate. You chose to be a nurse, correct? It's your profession.
Yes.
What took you to take this decision?
So, like I said, my dad was a paramedic he works an EMS job for the Omaha Fire Department. And growing up, he'd come home and he'd tell us stories about, the things he'd experienced, the things he would do out in the field as a medical worker. And I thought that was fascinating. So I knew I always wanted to do something in the medical field. I really, respected what my dad did. So I was kind of very passionate about pursuing something related to that. I thought I was going to become a paramedic, but when I was awarded a football scholarship, it was a 4-year scholarship. So my dad was actually the one who encouraged me to pursue nursing. He said, if you have 4 years where you can go to school, you can get a higher level degree and get a nursing degree. And then if I so chose, I could go back to school and just for like a short transition some classes to become a paramedic. That was always an option for me. But he was actually the one that encouraged me to pursue nursing in the first place.
Perfeito. Eu perguntei para ele, ele é enfermeiro nos Estados Unidos, e eu perguntei por que ele escolheu essa profissão. Ele falou que foi muito inspirado pelo pai, né? O pai que era um paramédico, bombeiro, e ele sempre quis fazer, ele escutava as histórias do pai, se sentia inspirado, e ele queria fazer algo nessa área. Foi algo que se tornou uma paixão para ele, né? Ele poderia ser um paramédico, mas o pai falou, não, você tem uma bolsa de estudos para estudar aos 4 anos, vai além, faça enfermagem, e então ele acabou estudando, e hoje ele trabalha como enfermeiro nos Estados Unidos. Perfect, excellent. Now, a tricky question, I guess. Why were you a model before all this, or it was something new in your life completely?
It was very new. So coming from Nebraska, it's a very blue collar state, a lot of labor jobs. People kind of take pride in being farmers and working as firemen or construction, things like that. And not that we don't have other careers in Nebraska, but it's sort of coming from the Midwest. That's a very, it's a lot of pride in that kind of work. So I never had any experience doing modeling, acting, nothing in the arts or theater. I was always very focused on my athletics, academics, and it was something I was always very interested in. Actually, my best scores testing out of high school were all in literature and reading and the arts. But it just I felt like I never really had time to pursue those kind of things. And also, it was a little bit of the stigma attached to it, where as a guy coming out of the Midwest, it was, you don't do modeling, you don't do acting. That's just not what guys do. You get a good job, a good labor job, and you work. And so I was always somewhat afraid to pursue that as well, as there wasn't a whole lot of opportunities for it. But when I became a traveling nurse, I got the opportunity to move out to California in the LA area. So Los Angeles, obviously sort of the hub for all that kind of stuff. So I figured, if I was out there, I had the opportunity to pursue those kinds of things. Didn't really have any idea where it would go, but I wanted to at least try my hand at it and, just try to experience as much as I could.
When you mention a traveling nurse, you mean that you go to different places and then you go back to Omaha?
Yes. So wherever I'm living, I haven't gone back to Omaha. I've been back to visit family a few times, but as a traveling nurse, you sign contracts to hospitals around the country. So you can
I see.
Usually you'll sign a contract for about 3 months at a time, and you'll work at that facility. It's usually facilities that are very short staffed and they need nurses right away. So you get kind of an expedited orientation process, and you're expected to hit the ground running and work for your 3 months. And then if you so choose, sometimes you can stay there, which is what I've actually done. I've extended my contract a few different times at the hospital I'm at here in LA. Or you can bounce around to different hospitals around the country.
And how did people find you, to participate in Mr. USA?
Sure. So when I moved out here, like I said, I was gonna look into the modeling and acting side of things. I just thought it's something I was always interested in, like I said. So I actually had a photographer friend of mine in Omaha who actually came up to me, and I was in line at a grocery store, and he came up to me, gave me his card. He said, "Hey, I think you have a good look. You could really make a career out of modeling if you wanted to." So I followed up with him. I did one shoot with him. That was really the only experience I'd had prior to that, and when I was about 22, I think. And did that. He helped me kind of make a portfolio. I submitted that to an online forum that's sort of based out here in LA, where actors and models and casting directors and other people in the industry can get in touch with you and kind of network. And that was when the director for the Mr. Supernational USA competition and pageant actually got a hold of me. And
Marisa, right?
Marisa, well, he was Marisa, and then Alan was also co-director. So those two got in touch with me, emailed me, and I was very against it at first. I thought, I was even on the fence with modeling. I'd never done it before. I wasn't sure how I even felt about doing that. But at the end of the day, I kind of decided it's worth trying. I was interested in it. I figured it couldn't hurt. I didn't think I would actually win the competition. I thought it'd be a good way to open up some new doors for me, but yeah, things went the way they did, and I'm very, very lucky that I was awarded the honor to win and represent the U.S.
Okay, I'm going to do my best to translate all that.
Sure. Sorry, if you need me to repeat anything, let me know. I kind of ramble on. You can just tell me if you need me to.
Ok, gente, então eu perguntei para ele como que um enfermeiro do Nebraska acabou num concurso de beleza. Ele falou que realmente é algo que no estado dele, em Nebraska, seria muito complicado, uma vez que é um local de fazendeiros, pessoas ligadas com construção, e até mesmo que não existe nada para essa área de modelo, ou muito pouco, né? E ele sempre teve envolvido com esportes, com os estudos, e que há até mesmo um tipo de preconceito com pessoas que acabam entrando nesse ramo, né? Muito conservador. Então, o que aconteceu? Ele assinou um contrato para trabalhar como enfermeiro em Los Angeles durante algum tempo, e em Los Angeles, através de um fotógrafo, né, ele fez umas fotos com um fotógrafo que é amigo dele. Ele tinha curiosidade de tentar alguma coisa no ramo de modelo e colocou um material online, como é muito normal na Califórnia para pessoas que queiram entrar no ramo. E aí foi que ele foi encontrado pela Marisa, pelo Alan, que são os diretores nacionais do Mr. Supranational nos Estados Unidos. E aí ele entrou. Ele disse que no começo quando ele foi chamado, ele ficou meio assim, vou, não vou, e acabou indo, e ele falou, não vai me fazer nenhum mal, não vou, talvez eu não ganhe mesmo. Ele não estava indo para ganhar, ele estava indo para tentar algo diferente, e aí tudo acabou se desenvolvendo da forma que foi, e ele se diz uma pessoa de muita sorte por ter, né, alcançado tudo isso, e que a experiência foi gratificante e maravilhosa. Vamos continuar aqui com a entrevista. I hope I said everything you said.
I hope so too. I couldn't tell.
Let's go. Okay, this question, by the way, that I just asked you came from William Freitas, who works with us.
Okay.
Now the next question is, how was your experience in the Mr. Supranational USA contest? How many candidates? How many days did you guys get together? How did it go last year?
Sure. In the US, so I think it was a total of like 15 to 17 guys, I think, different guys from around the country that were either invited or applied to audition. So the first day was, similar. They sort of modeled it after how the official Mr. Supranational international competition would work. So there's an interview process. We did catwalks, you did swimwear, you did formal wear. Then from that day, they picked a top 5. I think they ended up picking a top 6, actually. And we were invited to return the next day to audition, and it was a similar process with a whole new panel of judges. So that took place in Burbank, California, here just around LA. So I, met a bunch of awesome guys. Honestly, I got to give them a lot of credit, a lot of thanks, because I was probably the only guy that was very new to all of this. A lot of them had been either actors or models or were pursuing careers in those fields. And I was the only guy that was just, a regular average Joe, I guess how I would put it. But, they helped me, kind of coach me through some things and sort of helped me just give me an idea of what to expect, what to do. And so I really do appreciate their help. But yeah, I was lucky enough, like I said, did not expect to win. So I'm very fortunate and very grateful that I was chosen ultimately.
Okay, so I'm going to translate now.
Okay.
A pergunta agora foi como é que foi a experiência dele no Mister Estados Unidos, né? Como é que é o concurso lá? Ele falou que são mais ou menos 15 ou 17 candidatos, ele não tem certeza, de diversos estados dos Estados Unidos. E num primeiro dia eles tiveram entrevistas, um desfile em traje de banho, depois o traje de noite, toda aquela coisa tradicional do concurso. Então os organizadores escolheram um top 6 e esses 6 candidatos passaram para o segundo dia. E nesse segundo dia foi quando foi feita a escolha. Ele falou que os outros candidatos são muito bacanas, porque de todos eles, ele era aquele, principalmente por ser na Califórnia, que não tinha nenhum tipo de experiência como ator ou na área do entretenimento. E eles ajudaram ele bastante, deram muitas dicas e deram muita força para ele. Ele não esperava ganhar, ele esperava pegar toda aquela experiência para levar para adiante, né? Mas aconteceu e ele está muito feliz que ele acabou triunfando no concurso. Thanks, Nate. Let's go. Okay, this is an interesting question. You participated in Mr. Supranational USA, and then I imagine you research about Mr. Supranational and what you would encounter going to Poland. I'd like you to tell me how is expectation versus reality? What you expected to find and what you found when you arrived there.
Sure. So yeah, I really, you know, up until winning Mr. Supranational USA, I had zero experience with pageantry, and I was very new to it. I had not actually even heard of Mr. Supranational. It's not a big thing in the United States, unfortunately. So a lot of people in the U.S. haven't heard of it, and I was, you know, one of those people didn't really know much about it. I had very limited knowledge on pageants in general, and from what I did know, it was all female pageants because those are really the only ones that are followed in the U.S. And to be honest, you know, I did have a little bit of a preconceived idea that, you know, it's a superficial competition. They're looking for the same cookie cutter winner every time. There's not much more depth outside of the surface and, you know, in physical beauty. And that's, you know, somewhat what I was expecting. I thought I would meet a lot of guys that were very, you know, conceited, very full of themselves, guys that I typically wouldn't want to, you know, interact with or know, or and that was, you know, going into it, unfortunately, that was kind of my mindset for it. I think a lot of Americans probably do have a similar view of pageantry. But I was extremely pleased to find when I went over to Poland, even with the Mr. Supranational USA competition, all the guys, you know, there are a lot of awesome guys, very genuine, very real guys, very, you know, kind and caring people with a lot of different aspirations. And then the same was over in Poland. You know, you get to meet all these guys from all different walks of life all around the world. And it's, you know, again, it's a lot of just normal guys just like yourself. And there's much more to the competition than I expected. It was much more about, you know, who you are as a person, how genuine you were, you know, kind of much past just how you looked on the outside, how your physical appearance was. And I think, you know, I really do appreciate the fact that Mr. Supranational, the organization itself, looks for an individual that, you know, best represents their organization and provides, you know, and ultimately a role model for other men everywhere. And it's a lot more to it than what I expected.
Thank you. Here I go. Ok. Ok, pessoal. O que eu perguntei para ele foi o seguinte: como tudo isso era muito novo para ele, qual que era a expectativa dele antes de chegar na Polônia, né? Ele imaginava o que o Mr. Supranational seria contra o que é de verdade, a realidade, o que ele encontrou lá. O que ele me respondeu? Ele me falou, mais uma vez, né, que ele tinha zero experiência nessa questão de concursos de beleza, que até ele entrar ele nunca tinha ouvido falar em concursos de beleza para homens, que ele imaginava que isso era algo só para mulheres, que era algo superficial, que inclusive nos Estados Unidos não tem muitas pessoas que conheçam o Mr. Supranational ou concursos masculinos em geral, né? Então, ele chegou lá com um pouco de medo e apreensão, pensando que os candidatos poderiam ser superficiais, que pudesse ser uma competição superficial baseada somente no físico, né? Mas quando ele chegou lá, ele viu que eram pessoas reais, genuínas, fez amigos de verdade, que pessoas com semelhanças, né, nas histórias de vida, e mesmo que fossem diferentes, todas com um objetivo em comum. E ele ficou muito feliz de ver que a organização coloca muita atenção na pessoa que ele é, no interno, e não somente na aparência física, que o Mr. Supranational busca uma pessoa que seja um modelo para a sociedade, para outros jovens. Então, a expectativa contra a realidade, a conclusão é que a realidade foi muito melhor do que ele esperava chegando lá no concurso. Thank you, Nate. Agora eu vou perguntar para ele um pouquinho sobre os bastidores do concurso, o que aconteceu antes da final lá, para ele dizer para a gente a visão dele. I'd like you to give us a little bit of your view of the backstage of Mr. Supranational, like the days before the competition. For example, you were there competing, but did you think there were other favorites, or whatever you can tell us about what goes on behind the scenes
a little bit?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, you know, going into it, I think like I've touched on a few times now, I had no idea what to expect. But what a lot of people don't realize is leading up to the final show, the final competition, there's a whole week and a half where you're with these guys, I think it was 40 of us total, from all around the country. And it's, you know, you gotta you spend all your time with these guys, and you're in a hotel room most of the time, and you're rehearsing, and you're constantly being evaluated, you know, how you're interacting with each other, whether you're a team player, you know, how well you socialize with everyone else, how on time you are. And ultimately it was a job interview. I mean, it's, you know, they're looking for the best face for their organization, someone they think embodies all the values that they want people everywhere, young men everywhere to you know, to emulate. So it was a really cool experience just meeting these guys, getting to hear about how things work. You know, that was the first time I'd ever even been out of the country. So getting to hear how things worked in different countries and different perspectives, it was really eye-opening for me. But it was very tiring. I mean, you're constantly rehearsing hours and hours. I think there was days where we were rehearsing for about 9-10 hours. And I mean, it is very tedious work, and you have to keep at it. And at the same time, you're trying to keep up with your physical fitness, because you have, you know, a week and a half, and you got a swimwear walk you got to do. So you got to look good on stage, and you're trying to work out, you're trying to eat healthy, you're trying to, we're going to the rehearsal dinners. We had different promotional videos and shoots we had to do. We got the opportunity to go to an orphanage in a nearby village in Poland, which was an awesome experience. So it's your days are very filled, very regimented. We get the schedule the night before. Sometimes you're going to bed at midnight to 1 a.m. and waking up again at like 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. to try to work out before you have to be there for rehearsals in the morning. And so yeah, it's a lot of work. It was exhausting, but a lot of fun. And it was really awesome to get to meet all these guys. And you know, it's an experience that you're going to cherish forever, because that group of 40 guys is really the only people that you can really relate to. Nobody else has experienced it. Nobody else has done anything like that with your group. So it does form a very strong bond amongst all the guys. And it was a really cool thing. Nobody was really competing with each other. I didn't feel like, obviously at the end of the day it's a competition, you want to win, but it was a friendly competition, and everyone was in it for each other. It was kind of more of a team atmosphere more than anything. So it was a lot of fun.
Perfect, thank you. Ok, ele falou o seguinte, que, mais uma vez, né, que ele não sabia o que esperava, mas que muita gente não sabe, principalmente nos Estados Unidos, que são 15 dias de competição, são 40 candidatos, muitos ensaios, muitos mesmo, que eles estão sendo julgados o tempo inteiro, que não é somente as provas, os desfiles, mas também a pontualidade, que a organização está procurando aquela pessoa que pode melhor representá-la, né? Então tem uma série de pequenas coisas que eles estão observando todo o tempo inteiro. Foi a primeira vez que ele saiu dos Estados Unidos, ele nunca tinha viajado para fora. Ele deixa claro que, obviamente, é muito cansativo, né? Então, no tempo livre que ele tem, ele tentava ir à academia, dentro do possível comer bem, o que é sempre um desafio nesse tipo de competição, né? Porque é a comida que o concurso te dá, não é exatamente aquilo que você está acostumado ou que você planeja na sua vida. Participa em diversos vídeos promocionais, o que é uma experiência muito bacana, que nesse ano eles tiveram a oportunidade de visitar um orfanato, e que foi uma experiência muito, muito legal, e que os dias são extremamente ocupados, do comecinho da manhã até a noite, né? Muito, muito trabalho, mas que ao mesmo tempo é muito divertido. E também ele comenta que algo interessante que quem participa de concurso sabe, são as 40 pessoas, tem as pessoas da organização, mas os candidatos acabam formando uma ligação muito forte, porque eles, apesar de ser uma competição, eles são o apoio que eles têm, né? Então, isso é algo extremamente válido e interessante ele ter comentado com a gente. All right. Now, this is a funny question. During the pageant, let me just tell the people what I'm going to ask you. Just a second. Eu vou perguntar para ele o seguinte, que os candidatos a Mr. Brasil no ano passado, eu não sei se vocês acompanharam, quantos de vocês acompanharam ao vivo, mas teve uma hora que quando chamam o Ítalo entre os 10 finalistas, parecia que ele tinha assim, virado os olhos ou feito uma cara engraçada, como se ele não tivesse satisfeito. E que depois o próprio Ítalo falou, tanto ele quanto o Ítalo falaram, não, nada a ver, não, ele é um cara muito, muito bacana, a câmera pegou ele num momento de nervosismo e foi uma coincidência. Mas foi um momento engraçado, então eu vou perguntar para ele o que ele achou dessa coincidência, né, que acabou gerando um certo desconforto na hora, até para quem estava torcendo pelo Ítalo. All right, Nate, lots of people were watching the show live here in Brazil, and there is a very funny moment when they call Mr. Brazil, I believe in the top 10, the camera catches you and you're rolling your eyes, something like this. Of course, you didn't do it on purpose. And then afterwards, even Italo said, you know, the guy was so unlucky that the camera caught him in a moment. He was nervous, but he's so cool. I'm sure it was nothing against me. He was the first one to say that. But then the other contestants, we have a group, they were so mad. No, he cannot win. Why? He doesn't like Mr. Brazil. I just want you to say once and for all that, you know, it was just a horrible coincidence what happened then. Because now it's funny, you know, that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah. Okay, so I was actually, when I realized that, one of my friends who was watching the show back in the U.S., they mentioned, they asked me, they're like, so did you just hate Mr. Brazil, or what was the deal with that, the eye roll there? And I was mortified when I watched it. I watched the footage again. I saw that. What happened was, before the show, I mean, it was, like I said, it was very intensive as far as the rehearsals, and we only had a very limited number of stage rehearsals where we were actually on the live stage we were going to be competing on for the final show. So there was some, you know, there's a lot of stuff to remember, a lot of different catwalks, a lot of different directions, and different marking points where you're supposed to stand when they're announcing top 10, top 25, and so on. And Italo, and trust, I love Italo. He was one of my favorite guys there by far. The sweetest guy in the world, super easy to get along with. I don't even honestly know if this is true or not, but at the time, I looked over to Mr. UK, Walter, and we were talking about which direction we were supposed to stand when they're announcing the top 10. And we thought Italo had gone to the wrong side. And so I looked over at him, and we're like, and I look at Walter, and I'm like, I think he went to the wrong side. I think we're supposed to be lining up on the other side. And you can see me just like going, I'm like, well, let's just roll with it. And that's what I told him. I'm like, when it's catching me, it's me rolling my eyes. I'm like, let's just roll with it. That's how I was saying. I'm like, who cares? Just got to go with it. Pretend like this is planned. And again, I don't even remember, honestly, if he messed up or not, or if it was just me thinking he did. But that's what we were discussing. And it caught me right at the worst moment. So I felt horrible. And I told Italo afterwards, I told him, I came up to him, I made a point. I'm like, there's going to be a part you're going to see when you watch this show where I roll my eyes at you. It looks like I'm rolling my eyes at you. I swear. I mean, it was just me and Walter talking, and it had nothing to do with you being announced. Because I was,
and he was the first one to defend you. You know, the moment he came into the group, you know, to thank the guys for all the support, and they said, you know what happened? They had prints and everything, and then he was, no, don't worry, this was just an accident. He's a great guy. Yeah. So let me make sure that I translate it correctly here, okay?
Yeah.
Não, então eu perguntei para ele essa história, né, que no concurso, se vocês não assistiram, se vocês pegarem o vídeo do Mr. Supranational, vocês vão ver, na hora que chamam o Italo, ele tipo levanta os olhos, assim, faz uma expressão como se ele não tivesse gostado do Italo ter se classificado. E o próprio Italo, quando soube disso, defendeu ele imediatamente, falou, não, com certeza foi algum mal entendido. E ele está explicando que o que aconteceu foi, apesar dos muitos ensaios, ensaiar no palco ali da final, eles tiveram muitos poucos ensaios. Então, quando o Italo foi chamado, em vez de ele ir para a direção que ele deveria ir, ele foi para outra direção. Vamos supor, ele tinha que ir para a esquerda, ele foi para a direita. E aí ele virou para o Mr. Reino Unido, o Mr. UK, e falou, ai meu Deus, o Italo foi para o lado errado, e agora? E, tipo, vamos para onde for, o próximo vai para o outro lado, e pronto, resolveu. E a câmera pegou ele justo nesse momento, mas que ele fez questão de, logo que ele soube que um amigo dele dos Estados Unidos falou, você não gosta do Mr. Brasil? O que ele fez? Que você fez uma cara? E ele falou, meu Deus do céu, não, pelo amor de Deus, ele é uma das pessoas mais adoráveis, incríveis, não tem absolutamente nada de negativo para se falar sobre ele, foi só um acidente mesmo. Very well. Now it's all clear. Now I'm going to ask you about you and Italo. Of course, he doesn't speak your language, English, but he had only the best things to say about you, honestly. What was your impression about Italy? And then I have a question from him sure. That I'm going to ask you.
Absolutely.
Então eu perguntei para ele qual que é a opinião dele do Ítalo, porque o Ítalo, logo que ele ganhou, foi o primeiro a dizer o quão merecedor ele era, que realmente foi extremamente merecido o título, e eu estou perguntando para ele a opinião dele sobre o Ítalo. Go ahead, please.
So, Ítalo, yeah, like you said, there's a major language barrier. I didn't speak much Portuguese, and he didn't speak a whole lot of English. So I think what was really, awesome and special about that relationship that we had and that he had with all the guys was the fact that regardless of the language barrier, I guarantee there's not a single guy that competed in the competition that I would have a bad thing to say about Italo. I mean, he was always very charismatic, lots of energy, always, you know, very optimistic and happy. And, you know, and a lot of times, you know, you do get very exhausted, very tired. And there are times during rehearsals where people will get frustrated and things don't necessarily go your way all the time. But Italo, the entire competition, was always optimistic, always happy. He's just a lot of energy. Just you wanted to be around the guy because of just how he held himself and how he presented himself and how he acted. And so, yeah, I want to learn Portuguese just for the sole fact I want to be able to communicate with Italo better, just because I think he's an awesome guy. But yeah, no, I'm happy to know that he thinks the same way about me, because he was
definitely.
That's really good to hear. He honestly, and I really do mean this, he was one of the guys. Like I said, going into this, I was very, you know, uneasy about how I felt, and you know, sort of I had a preconceived notion that there's a lot of very superficial event. You know, there's a lot of guys that are very conceited and maybe not the type of people that I would want to be around, but that wasn't the case at all. And Italo was one of the first people that I recognized, and I was like, all right, this guy's, you know, he's a genuine good guy, and if this guy can do this, and this is, you know, it made it okay for me. I'm like, he's a legitimate person. I really respect this guy, and so I just based off the fact that Italo was there with me, it made me was very relaxed after that. And I felt like this is something that I do want to do, and this is a legitimate event. It's a really cool opportunity for all of us.
Actually, Italo just left a message here. First, he said, no, tell him I went to the right place. But he was just joking. And then he said, my bro. So, you know, everything is okay. I'm gonna translate to him what you said, all right? And to everyone.
Okay.
Então eu perguntei para ele qual que é a impressão do Ítalo, que ele tem do Ítalo, né? Ele falou que um dos problemas lá, entre vários deles, o problema, ele não falava português, o Ítalo não falava inglês, e isso acontecia com diversos outros candidatos também. Mas que apesar dessa barreira do idioma, todos eles de alguma forma se comunicavam, que o Ítalo era um dos candidatos que ele esperava chegar e conhecer, né, pela fama que ele já tinha, a boa fama que ele já tinha na internet e tudo mais, e que ele chegou e viu um cara genuíno, uma excelente pessoa, que mesmo nos dias onde o cansaço pegava mesmo pesado, e os ensaios são exaustivos, que o Ítalo estava sempre pondo as pessoas para cima e mantendo a postura dele, a boa energia, e a gente sabe que ele é exatamente assim, né? Então ele diz, ele é extremamente carismático, é o tipo de pessoa, a definição é essa, é o tipo de pessoa que você quer ter sempre por perto. E eu concordo com isso, é isso aí mesmo. Então, qualquer mal entendido fica para trás, né? A gente já sabia disso, mas é bom estar explicado. Perfect.
Be familiar. I think that was the thing. We just constantly get familiar, and that was all we needed to say.
O Nate está falando a famosa frase do Ítalo, né? Que é família. Isso aí ele aprendeu. Agora eu vou perguntar para ele a pergunta do Ítalo, né? Ele está perguntando como está sendo a rotina como enfermeiro, né? E o que mudou na vida dele depois de ele ter ganho o título. Nate, Ítalo has two questions for you, all right?
Right.
The first one is what has changed in your life after you became Mr. Supranational, and the second one is how is your routine now as being a nurse in such a situation, the pandemic and everything?
Sure. Honestly, you know, those two questions almost kind of coincide with each other at this point with everything that's going on. You know, I started 2020 expecting it to go one way. You know, we had a lot of trips, a lot of different fun promotional events and things planned with the Mr. Supranational organization. And that was going to kind of start getting underway here in May. I think my first trip was planned for Peru. And then this whole summer, you know, there's going to be a lot more activities with the organization. I obviously have a larger social media following now. I think prior to that, I barely was really on Instagram too much. Now I'm much more active in it. But I look at it as an opportunity to, you know, not only spread awareness and as far as the nursing field, but also I've been able to do different charity work that I've been very passionate about wanting to get into. And so one of the things that I was able to do back in February was go on a mission trip to the Gambia in Africa. And we were able to visit a few different schools, some of the poorest schools in the area that we were staying at. And we were also able to visit a medical clinic there, kind of get some knowledge, get some information as far as what the major struggles they were having, It was a very good informative trip, and we were also able to, donate some supplies and food and different things to the schools. I met with one of the chief nursing officers at the clinic, and the plan is to make return trips, continual return trips, and help out. There's one school in particular that we found, it's one of the poorest schools in the area, that we want to continue to follow up and continue to work with, and help provide them with some of the resources that they don't have right now. And then same with the medical clinic. We're hoping to kind of work together with both the school and the clinic, and continue to make trips yearly. And so that's something I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do something like that without winning Mr. Supranational and having the following I do now. It's a lot easier to gain support to help with the charity work.
Perfect. First of all, just let me say hello to Valeria Vasquez.
Valeria,
Miss Supranational. She's here with us. She's saying hello.
She's the best.
She's a great girl.
The sweetest.
Ok, let me translate what you said. Essa resposta para o Ítalo e para todos, né, da pergunta que ele fez, como que a vida dele mudou depois de ele ter vencido, né, e também a rotina dele como enfermeiro depois disso. O que ele falou foi que antes do concurso ele não dava muita importância para as redes sociais, né, o número de seguidores dele cresceu significativamente, e ele hoje entende que isso pode ser usado de uma forma bastante positiva, né, levando conhecimento nesse momento da pandemia, e não só nesse momento, mas no geral, como Mr. Supranational, como pessoa, as redes sociais podem ser usadas de uma forma muito positiva. Ele destacou uma viagem feita ao Gâmbia, que é um país do oeste africano. Eles foram numa missão nos lugares mais pobres do país, onde existe uma clínica, uma escola, levaram várias doações. Se eu não me engano, esse trabalho já é feito com o pessoal do Mr. Polsky. Just to make sure, this work in the Gambia has the Mr. Polsky people behind, right?
Yeah.
They have been going there for a while now.
Originally approached me and
Perfect.
asked me to come with.
Great. Então é isso mesmo, o pessoal do Mr. Polônia, eles já trabalham, convidaram ele para fazer parte, e para ele, sendo um enfermeiro, foi extremamente fantástico, né? Eles puderam levar aparelhos médicos que eram necessários para a clínica, e a ideia agora é que isso continue, voltar todos os anos para lá, e enfim, que a vida dele mudou positivamente, né, depois que ele ganhou o Mr. Supranational.
I guess I'm sorry.
Nate,
oh,
of course.
I was just gonna say I never really finished the question. I guess I was going. What I was going with it was I saw 2020 go in one direction.
Thank you for that. You can,
and then
if you go slow, it's even better for me.
Sure, yeah. I'll try to cut it up a little bit better. If you need me to stop to help interpret, just let me know.
No, it's perfect. I'm getting everything. I'm just kidding. Let's go.
But yeah, no, I guess this year has gone a totally different direction with the travel bans and everything that's going on with the pandemic. I haven't been able to do a lot of the things that was originally we planned to do with the organization. So, I haven't got to do the typical things that a reigning Mr. would do during his year. But, I've had to focus on my career as a nurse. And I think everything, I look at it, everything happens for a reason. And I think there's a reason that I happen to be an emergency room nurse, and that this year is going the way it is. And I really do get to focus on, helping here at home with the pandemic. That's, it's affecting lives everywhere. So although it's unfortunate, I'm happy I get to do what I get to do. And at the end of the day, I think that's what's really important about being Mr. Supranational is being a role model for others out there. So sometimes you have to put, your needs and your wants and things that you want to do for the good of everybody, and
of course. Perfect. Não, ele também mencionou, né, que obviamente, com essa crise, várias das coisas, viagens e situações que estavam planejadas, por enquanto estão interrompidas, mas que ele entende que tudo na vida tem uma razão, né? Ele trabalha numa UTI como enfermeiro, e hoje ele vê que ele estar nesse momento lá, ajudando as pessoas e recebendo as vítimas dessa doença terrível, é tão importante quanto, ou mais importante do que se ele estivesse agindo como Mr. Supranational, e que tudo tem o seu tempo, né? Então, ele está bem ciente de que as coisas acontecem por algum motivo. Thank you, Nate. I saw that in Nebraska, thank God you don't have as many cases or deaths as in New York or other parts in the United States. But how is the situation? And I have a question from Leonardo Rodriguez. He's a doctor, and he's asking if you are on the front line, meaning if you are in contact with people who's fighting against the virus. And he's also curious to know if you are also struggling with lack of equipment and things like that in Nebraska.
Sure. So currently I'm living in California, in the Los Angeles area. So I'm working here at a hospital in California. But back in my home state of Nebraska, the Midwest isn't being hit quite as hard as they are on the coast. New York especially is being hit very hard by this. They got hit very hard all at once, and it kind of overwhelmed their healthcare system, their hospital system. So yeah, it's very unfortunate. You know, my heart's out to those guys because they've been working tirelessly, and I can't even compare to what we're dealing with in California. Although it is busier, it's one of the busier states. It's one of the higher incidences, higher case loads.
How is it in California right now?
It's where I think, you know, I know New York's getting hit the worst by far. Chicago and Illinois has gotten hit decently hard. Washington was getting hit very hard. I think they're still doing a little bit better. And then California, LA County, sort of right around where we're at, is one of the higher case numbers for the coronavirus too. So California is, but we're managing it okay. The fact that everyone's been staying at home, helping flatten the curve. I know that's been in the news a bunch. That really has helped. So we are seeing, consistent patients coming in, very sick people with the coronavirus infection, but because people are staying home for the most part, we're not being overwhelmed all at once. So that's what's, really helping us get through this whole pandemic.
But you are working with
yes.
with people who are fighting,
especially in the emergency room. And as an ER nurse, you're the first line that sees them. They have either an ambulance will bring in patients from the field to the ER, or people will come in through the ER lobby and check themselves in, whether they drive themselves or walk or what have you. But we're the first people that really see these patients. So we don't know when people have the infection. Those tests, we still haven't ran those tests. So anybody in the ER, a lot of it's unknown. I mean, you get people that come in and they have the symptoms, but you don't know who has it and who doesn't. A lot of people are actually asymptomatic or have very mild symptoms. So that's the other thing that's, kind of always in the back of your mind is you might not be deathly ill from it, but you still could be infected with it. And it does, it has the potential to get other people, though, certain vulnerable populations, very, very sick. And so those are the people that are really kind of putting strain on the U.S. healthcare system and the healthcare systems all over the world.
And as far as equipment and hospitals in LA, you still don't have a problem, right?
We're still doing okay. I know that's not the case for a lot of facilities all over the U.S. There is a shortage in many different hospitals, especially in New York, because obviously, like I said, they've been getting hit with a lot more patients with the coronavirus infection. I'm fortunate enough, the facility I'm at right now we're doing okay. We don't really have issues with PPE. We do have to be careful and kind of ration it and always be mindful that it's not an endless supply, but we're doing okay so far. But that's, like I said, not the case for a lot of different places around the country. And the community outreach and support has been amazing. People have been making us homemade masks. People have been, donating hand sanitizer and sanitary wipes and different things that the community has done to help out the healthcare system. It's really been truly cool to see the whole community as a whole come back up and, help assist the healthcare workers.
Perfect, thank you. O Leonardo Rodrigues, que é médico, perguntou para ele qual que é a situação. Ele tinha perguntado em Omaha, mas ele mora agora em Los Angeles, né, na situação da pandemia, e se está havendo falta de equipamento, situações que a gente enfrenta aqui no Brasil e em outros países. Ele falou, então ele explicou que ele está trabalhando na Califórnia, que realmente no Nebraska a situação comparada a estados como Illinois ou Nova York e outros, não é séria, né? E mesmo na Califórnia, como as pessoas estão colaborando muito com o que está sendo pedido, elas estão ficando em casa, existe uma mobilização das comunidades muito grande, então as doações têm sido muitas de máscaras, de tudo que é necessário. O problema existe, ele está sim trabalhando na linha de frente, né? Ele trabalha na UTI, ele recebe, na verdade, não é nem, não, na verdade, desculpa, não é a UTI, é o emergency room, é quando as pessoas, é o pronto-socorro, né? Quando as pessoas chegam no hospital. E ele trabalha no pronto-socorro, ele recebe várias pessoas, algumas assintomáticas, mas que podem ter a doença, e outras que têm a doença, então ele está em contato direto, sim, com essas pessoas e fazendo o possível para ajudar. Mas ele repete, fica o exemplo para nós, né? Na Califórnia as pessoas estão seguindo as recomendações, elas estão ficando em casa, existe uma mobilização muito positiva, e o medo deles lá é o medo que a gente tem aqui. No momento que isso chegue à camada da população mais vulnerável, que isso possa se espalhar de uma forma terrível, né? Então, por enquanto, de qualquer forma, é um trabalho fantástico que ele está fazendo. Congratulations on what you've been doing,
Oh, thank
not only at the hospital, but also taking awareness. What you said right now is very important, even for the people in Brazil. Sometimes they don't take it seriously. You know, not everyone is staying at home. And unfortunately, we have a president that doesn't help much. So it's a good example for us and for everyone.
Thank
definitely.
you. I appreciate it.
Okay, I have a question from one of our contestants, Lucas Leite. He's Mr. Victoria Islands. He's going to compete for the Mr. Brazil title this year. What tip would you give them, you know, to become a winner, as someone who didn't have anything to do with this and suddenly is Mr. Supranational?
Sure. I think my advice to anybody, I've been asked a few times, different guys for different, I mean, there's a lot of, you know, male pageants all over the world, but for anybody looking to pursue the Mr. Supranational pageant or any pageants, biggest thing for me is be yourself, be authentic, be genuine. At the end of the day, they want somebody they don't want that cookie cutter. They don't want what I always, you know, expected out of pageants. They don't want that perfect face, that perfect this and that. They don't want the bland, same old, same old. They want somebody that's real, somebody that people can relate to. And I think that's the biggest thing for me is just, you know what, be comfortable in your own skin and just be yourself.
Thank you. Eu fiz a pergunta do Lucas Leite, o nosso Mr. Ilhas de Vitória CNB, que conselho ele daria, né, para vencer, ainda mais ele que veio sem nenhuma experiência nisso. E o conselho dele é muito válido e muito simples, né? Seja autêntico, não queira ser alguém forjado, digamos assim, seja alguém com quem que as pessoas possam se identificar, não fingir que você é quem se sentir confortável dentro da sua própria pele, né? Fazendo essa tradução literária. E é realmente um excelente conselho. Nate, Luiz Gustavo, our Mr. Brasilia, asks, what was your biggest challenge in your journey to the title?
For me, I mean, obviously being very new to everything, I had to sort of learn everything very quick, kind of on the fly. I think after I'd won Mr. Supranational USA, I only had about a month or so, maybe a little bit over a month to prepare. So that meant I had to get I didn't have any photos to use to help promote. And I also, you know, I hadn't really, not having done any photo shoots, that is a part of it. You have to do different photo shoots in swimwear and formal wear. I had to sort of learn how to be a model, essentially. I mean, I'd never done it before. So, and also doing catwalks, and, you know, there's a whole science behind that. There really is. They do look at little technicalities of different things. And if you don't know what you're doing, I mean, you can goof up on stage, and it's a big deal. So yeah, just learning, you know, everything about modeling and catwalks and runways, and just sort of what to expect in the industry as a whole, because I was very new to it. That, and also, like I said, I think it was just more my own personal struggle of trying to get myself to try something new and put myself out there and try something new, you know, where I felt somewhat uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm very proud I did what I did, and I'm very happy I did, because I think you don't get any kind of personal growth in your life if you aren't pushing yourself, trying things. Even if you're a little uncomfortable, you're outside your comfort zone. You know, you're not going to ever achieve your goals or achieve anything you want to achieve if you don't try something new and get yourself out there.
O Luiz Gustavo, Mr. Brasília, e eu tenho o Cenoura brigando com ele, dizendo que é a pergunta dele também, mas na verdade os dois perguntaram, e o Cenoura, eu vou fazer outra pergunta sua. qual foi o maior desafio dele, né, nessa caminhada para o título. E ele falou que foi realmente ter saído do zero, né? Ele não sabia nada quando ele entrou no concurso. Então, ele teve apenas um mês do Mr. USA para o Mr. Supranational, e ele teve que aprender a ser modelo para fazer as fotos que ele precisava mandar. Ele teve que aprender a desfilar. Ele fala uma coisa aqui muito interessante, que às vezes você pensa que desfilar é simplesmente ir lá e caminhar, e que não é. Que existem vários aspectos técnicos, né, coisas que você realmente aprende para você desfilar da forma correta e não parecer um bobo na hora de competir. Então foram muitos os desafios. Ele realmente teve que aprender tudo muito rapidamente para poder chegar lá e representar bem o país dele. Vamos lá. All right. Now it's funny because we have two contestants fighting, because I asked you a question that the two of them asked, and then the other one was saying, "No, I asked that." I said, "No, take it easy. I have another question for you." And Rafael, who's our Mr. Plano Piloto, he's also competing this year in Mr. Brazil. He wants to. This is very interesting. What's your feeling about the hot picks on the internet? I mean, all those lists,
sure,
of favorites and things like that.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get wrapped up in that kind of stuff. But the way I looked at it was, like I said earlier, you have a whole week and a half leading up to that competition, the actual live show, and it's a lot of behind the scenes that people don't see. So you got to stick to, again, being yourself. And just focusing on doing what you have to do, and not worrying about the top picks and this and that, because they, the people making those boards, those top picks, they, even if they have their ear to the ground and are listening, and there's a rumor mill, oh, this person's a favorite and this and that, they really don't know. It's the people that matter, are the ones that are there, that are present, that are actually competing. And so you got to just focus on you. You can't get wrapped up in all that stuff, because they don't really know what's going on, and it's stuff. It's only gonna be impact you negatively, really, if you start really focusing on that kind of stuff and let that get in your head.
Thank you. Very good answer. I even believe they impact both ways, because if you are a favorite, maybe you can find yourself in a comfort zone.
Absolutely.
And if you're not, then you're depressed, and it's not going to help you either way. So
yep, exactly. No good comes.
It's something for fun in the internet, but for the fans, not for the contestants.
Exactly, yeah, and it's okay. I know there's a lot of guys that
of course,
they'd see that, and we'd look at it, and it's fun, but at the same time, you can't dwell on that kind of thing. It really doesn't. At the end of the day, those are just predictions. It doesn't actually matter. So,
and of course, they are very important. They are, the followers, the people who.
Absolutely.
But you don't have to take it very seriously.
Yes.
Então, a pergunta do Rafael Cenoura, o nosso Mr. Plano Piloto, foi o que ele acha dessas listas de favoritos, dos hot picks que aparecem na internet. Ele falou que essas pessoas, elas não estão lá. É algo que, aliás, eu sempre falo para os nossos candidatos também. Eles não estão vendo o que está acontecendo, eles não sabem a real da situação, né? É algo para divertimento, é algo para os fãs, é algo bacana, eles apoiam, tá tudo bem, mas você não pode levar aquilo realmente a sério, porque senão você vai acabar caindo num lugar negativo e isso vai te prejudicar. Na opinião dele, você deve focar em você, no que você está fazendo, né, para evitar qualquer tipo de impacto negativo. Então, o comentário que eu fiz foi exatamente esse. E nos dois casos, se você é favorito nessas listas, você acaba caindo numa zona de conforto, né? E se você não é, você fica deprimido porque você não está. E realmente isso não vai influenciar em nada em qualquer concurso. Muito bom.
I do want to say also that the fans from Mr. International were outstanding. It was awesome. The support that we got was really, really cool. So the people that are making those, the leaderboards and this and that, it is very cool that people are that passionate.
Definitely. Really, it's just to know how to.
Yeah,
right?
You got to separate. Yeah, exactly. During the competition, it's not going to do us any good focusing on that kind of stuff. Even though we do see it, and it is really cool. It's something you can kind of reflect on later on. But the fans were awesome throughout the whole thing. They still are.
Jusinei Ferreira, he was our contestant 2 years ago, Mr. Triangulo. He's asking if you have learned anything from the pageant that you think you're going to use in your life, not only for as Mr. Supranational, but as a person?
Yeah. I think kind of what I said earlier as far as being able to step outside your comfort zone and, try something new. I think that was sort of a pinnacle for me. I look at it like that, where it was something I was very unfamiliar with. It's easy to kind of worry about coming from a upbringing where that's not the norm, that's not what people do, and you're going to probably get some flack, get some criticism for it. But being able to, just focus on yourself, do what you want to do with your life, and not worry about what other people are doing, and live for yourself and not for other people. I think doing the Mr. Supranational competition has given me a lot more confidence to, pursue the things that I want to pursue and not focus on what other people say or do.
Ok. O Jucinei Ferreira, que foi nosso Mister Triângulo, semifinalista do Mister Brasil há 2 anos, ele perguntou se tem algo que ele aprendeu do concurso que ele vai levar para a vida, independente do título de Mister Supranational. E ele falou que o mais importante, o que ele vai levar, é a questão de você sair da sua zona de conforto, tentar algo novo, né? E que tudo isso deu a ele muito mais confiança para conquistar os objetivos dele, sem se importar com o que outras pessoas dizem. Excellent. Let me just say hello to Carlos Franco, our Mr. Brazil World, who was also top 5 in Mr. World.
Hey, Carlos.
Our guys are doing really well. He's participating here. I have a question from Jessica Newton. She was Miss Universe Peru a few years ago, and she's the national director of Mr. Peru, who's also did so well in your pageant. She's asking, what important message do you have in this specific moment to the world?
I'd have to say it's going to have to relate to the pandemic that's going on, since that's all over the news and that's sort of what's on everyone's mind at this moment in time. It's hard to avoid that topic. I would say everyone to just, stay hopeful. I think there's a lot of negativity in the media. And I think it's easy to get down and depressed, and everyone's stuck at home. You miss your family, you miss your friends, you miss, a lot of just social interaction. I think it's important that you remember, why we're doing this. Remember that it's not going to last forever, that we will get through this. And at the end of the day, I think it's going to help everybody everywhere to have a greater appreciation for, the people in your life, and realize how much you do care for those people and how much they mean to you, how much you need them in your life. Because between the social distancing and obviously other people unfortunately getting sick, falling ill, and passing away, I think it really does, help everyone everywhere to very much appreciate what they do have in their lives and all those people that all their loved ones.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Actually, again, we have some fight from Mr. Brasilia. He's saying that he also asked this. You sent me like 10 questions. Come on, you asked what everyone asked. Ok, a Jessica Newton, que foi Miss Peru Universo, que é a diretora nacional do Miss Peru Universo, que é a diretora do Miss e Mr. Supranational, ela pergunta qual mensagem importante ele tem para o mundo nesse momento. E, resumindo, ele falou que para as pessoas manterem a esperança, né? Ter muito cuidado com o que é dito na mídia, que a mídia às vezes transforma tudo em algo muito, muito pesado, que isso vai passar, e quando passar a gente vai ter muito mais gratidão por tudo que a gente tem. É um momento para a gente desenvolver essa gratidão, enfim, tirar coisas positivas disso tudo. Excellent. We now have a question here, Nate, from Suriname, from Chilton Sampono, the National Director of Mr. Supranational Suriname. This is interesting. What was the greatest lesson you've learned from Mr. Brazil, from Italo?
From Italo. Honestly, he was, like I said, he was so charismatic and just confident all the time. And, I don't think he ever doubted himself or his own character at any point in time. So, even just being around him was very, his positive light, his positive energy was very infectious. So I think that honestly helped me throughout the competition. Anytime, you're starting to get down, or you're exhausted, you're tired, and you're starting to have any kind of doubts or anything like that, being around Italo was, revitalizing. And I think just the positive energy that he has, I think is something that everyone everywhere can use a lot of in their life, especially right now with the way things are in the world.
Thank you. O Chilton Sampono, que é o diretor do Mr. Supranational, perguntou do Mr. Supranational Suriname, perguntou para ele qual foi a principal lição que ele aprendeu do Ítalo. Ele repete novamente que o Ítalo é um cara tão carismático, tão confiante, que tem uma energia tão positiva, até a expressão que ele usou o Ítalo é revitalizante. Caramba, deu 1 hora. E passou assim, né? Conversa muito boa.
Lost you for a second.
Hey, Nate. Welcome back.
Hello.
I didn't even realize it was 1 hour already. Very, very good chat. So I was just translating what you said about Ítalo. Então, pessoal, ele estava dizendo isso, né? Que ele vê no Ítalo, a expressão que ele usou é que o que ele teria aprendido dele, o Ítalo é uma pessoa revitalizante, alguém que você quer estar por perto, e ele leva isso, essa coisa de você sempre ser positivo e levar boas coisas. And Ítalo is saying that, hey, família.
Familia.
Okay, now I have another question for you from Miss World Brazil, top 5 in Miss World America, Elise Mieli. She's asking, how do you combine your work as a nurse with your duties as Mr. Supranational? Of course, not right now because of the pandemic, but usually, how were you doing before all this started?
Sure. I think sort of like I said earlier, one of the most important things, at least for me, the way I view it, is being yourself, being genuine, being authentic and true to who you are. So it's important to incorporate, yourself into the work as Mr. Supranational or any pageant winner. I think that it's so for me personally, as an emergency room nurse, I don't want to lose that part of me just because I'm also Mr. Supranational. That doesn't mean anything else changes in my personal life, and I'm very passionate about the work that I do. So being able
But for example, are you able to take some days off in case you need to travel?
Yeah.
Are the people at the hospital, sympathetic
Yes.
with the fact that you are Mr. Supranational?
Very supportive of everything with the Mr. Supranational campaign and everything that happened. So yeah, I was very fortunate that they worked with me on that. And also as a traveling nurse, in between your contracts you sign, the 13 weeks is pretty typical. You don't technically have to work. You can take off time in between your contracts and do whatever I need to do, whatever my responsibilities are for the organization. I can make work in between those schedules. But I think it's important that I promote my profession as a nurse, promote healthcare workers everywhere. And again, the work that we're doing in the Gambia with the MRC clinic, I think help do different mission work, medical mission work. And with more of a platform now, it helps sort of promote that work. So it's really awesome opportunity for me.
Perfect. A Elise Mieli, nossa Miss Brasil Mundo, perguntou como é que ele concilia o trabalho dele como Mr. Supranational com as obrigações dele, o trabalho dele de enfermeiro, né? Ele falou que o hospital onde ele trabalha e esse plano que que ele pode viajar ele tem diferentes contratos em diferentes regiões a cada tantas semanas ou meses. Eles têm apoiado bastante ele, então, como o Mr. Supranational, inclusive, ele usa essa oportunidade para promover a profissão, ele acha uma oportunidade incrível e, mais uma vez, menciona a viagem ao Gâmbia, né, que eles apoiaram e deram toda a força, então ele não tem tido nenhum tipo de problema em relação a isso. Nate, Mike Soares from Minas Gerais, he wants to know, how do you see the current scenario of male pageants and what do you think they're missing to be on a equal footing with the female pageants, in your opinion?
Sure. It's still very, very new to pageantry in general, and my real only experiences with the Mr. Supranational pageant. So I think what the Mr. Supranational organization is doing is awesome, and I don't know if that's the same case for different pageants around the world, but I think the fact that they promote much more than just physical beauty is important. They're looking for a role model, somebody that young men or just anyone everywhere can look up to and try to emulate those values and those characteristics. I think that's important. I think it should be much more to it than just a physical beauty contest, which I think the Mr. Supranational organization does an amazing job of doing and promoting. As far as what could help promote it further, I don't really I don't know. I think just the more winners you get, the more people that are crowned Mr. Supranational, that they take that title and it means something to them. And they try to do good with that work, and they show that it's much more than just a beauty contest. I think that'll do a lot to promote pageants in general, male pageants, and show that there's a lot of good behind this, and it's you know, it's a really awesome opportunity for men to make a difference and really, you know, do good in the world because of the platform that they've won when they're crowned the winner.
Perfect. O Mike Soares, de Minas, ele perguntou como é que ele vê a situação, né, o cenário atual dos concursos masculinos e o que ele acha que está faltando para esses concursos chegarem no patamar do feminino. Como ele já havia dito, ele é muito novo nisso tudo, mas ele admira muito o Mr. Supranational por ser um concurso incrível que promove muito mais que apenas o físico, né, que o Mister precisa ser mais do que isso. Então, quanto mais eleitos puderem levar isso para o mundo e mostrar esse lado positivo, porque as pessoas têm um preconceito sem nem sequer conhecer, mais promoção positiva o concurso vai recebendo. We are almost done, Nate. I'm not gonna. I know you are tired and you have to work tomorrow.
I'm good.
Just a couple of questions more. We have beautiful Elisandra Cristina. She's Miss Supranational Goiás. She's gonna compete for the title Miss Supranational Brazil. She's asking if for any moment you thought that when you were standing with Italo, that Italo would be the winner, or if you were confident enough and knew you were going to be Mr. Supranational.
I feel like I almost just blacked out at that point. It was whatever happened was going to happen, and I was just excited that I'd even made it to that point. You know, I never expected to win in the U.S. to represent the U.S. I didn't expect to make, you know, top 10, let alone be one of the final 2 chosen. And I think Italo was, you know, like I've preached on a million times, was an amazing, amazing guy. He is an amazing, amazing guy, and is very, very definitely deserved to win as well. So you know, the fact that I was chosen was because it was between us two, made it even, you know, that much more of an honor for me because of who I was, you know, facing off with, who the last 2 of us were, and that same to be said for everybody that competed. You know, it was an awesome group of guys. So I'm very fortunate that I was chosen, and it was a huge honor considering the amazing group that we had. So I really had no idea what to expect, but whatever happened, I was going to be okay with. That's kind of what I had made my mind up when I was sitting there on the stage.
Perfect. A Elisandra Cristina, que é a nossa Miss Supranational Goiás, ela perguntou se por algum momento, quando ele estava ali com o Ítalo, ele achou que o Ítalo seria o Mr. Supranational. E aí ele falou que naquele momento que estavam os dois, né, que a mente dele deu um blackout, né, que ele estava ali realmente pensando que ele não esperava ganhar nem nos Estados Unidos e o quão incrível era ter chegado até aquele ponto ali. E aí ele repete mais uma vez que o Ítalo é um cara absolutamente incrível, que também merecia ganhar, que também merecia estar ali, e que foi assim uma tremenda honra poder ter vencido estando ao lado dele. Daí ele fala que também não é apenas o Ítalo, mas que o grupo inteiro era maravilhoso, né? Então, respondendo claramente, no final ele fala assim, eu não sabia o que ia acontecer, mas que ele se sente extremamente honrado por isso. One more question for you. Actually, I have 2 more, Nate.
Sure.
This is from Paulo Diaz. He's asking if you would like to visit Brazil someday, and what is the image you have of Brazil? When you think of Brazil, what comes to your mind? Let me just translate the question here.
Sure.
O Paulo Dias está perguntando se ele gostaria de conhecer o Brasil em algum momento e qual que é a imagem que ele tem do Brasil. Quando ele pensa em Brasil, o que vem à mente dele?
I would absolutely love to visit Brazil. I know it's a beautiful country, and really my only experience, you know, I've never been to Brazil, I've never even been to South America, so I'd say the really only thing I have to base off it is people that I've met that are from Brazil, and I've met a couple people, including Italo, you, Enrique, and I'd say that everyone that I've met from Brazil has been amazing, very, very, very kind, very caring people. So if Brazil is nearly as awesome as the people that I've met that are from the country, then yes, absolutely. I'm very excited. I hope I get the opportunity to go there someday.
Who knows? Maybe you'll be here soon.
Hope so.
Então ele respondeu que ele adoraria vir ao Brasil, evidentemente, que ele nunca esteve na América do Sul, nem no Brasil, nem em nenhum outro país, e que se as pessoas forem como o Ítalo, ele mencionou a mim também, incríveis e tal, que ele imagina que o país seja fantástico, então que ele não vê por que não, que ele realmente adoraria vir ao Brasil. And you'll be very welcome when you come to Brazil.
Thank you.
Josimar Castilhos, he's asking, again, I think you've answered this. Oh, but there is a complementary question here. He asked, how was your experience with the children in the Gambia? But then he asked, what have you learned from them? What can you say that you've learned from those kids?
Yeah, that was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. They call it the Smiling Coast. They're very proud that they call it. That's their motto is the Gambia is the smiling coast of Africa. And I think it's, it's a very, very true statement. Everybody there, extremely kind. They don't have much. I mean, it's one of the poorest countries in the world. And still these people, I mean, you're walking the streets and everyone is so kind, always smiling, so generous. And the children, are just so happy. Again, they don't barely have enough money to put the clothes on their back. Their parents can't even afford some of the basic necessities and things that a lot of us take for granted. And still these kids are, they're happy, they're playing, they're laughing. And it was just a truly, eye-opening experience. And it was very, refreshing to see the good in humanity, regardless of how much money you have and how many material possessions you own. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, human connection is what mattered. And it was really cool to be able to go over there and experience that.
Thank you. Então, o Josimar Castilhos, ele perguntou mais uma vez como é que tinha sido a experiência dele com as crianças no Gâmbia e também o que ele aprendeu dessas crianças. E a resposta dele é que o Gâmbia é conhecido como a costa sorridente da África e que não é à toa, que as pessoas lá são muito boas, extremamente generosas, elas são felizes com o pouco que elas têm. Elas buscam encontrar em você o que você tem de melhor. Então ele falou que para ele foi uma experiência de realmente abrir os olhos, né? Que não importa o que você tem, fazer o melhor do que você tem. E que no final da história o mais importante é essa conexão humana, é você saber se relacionar da melhor forma com as outras pessoas. Excellent. Let me see if there is anything else. Oh, okay. The National Director from the Philippines, Mr. Arnold Mercado, he also has a question for you. Oh, this is very, 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 very nice question. During the pandemic, what would you advise people that get frustrated to do, or that get sad, or who are having a hard time facing this thing? Let me just translate the question.
Yeah.
O senhor Arnold Mercado, que é o diretor nacional das Filipinas, ele pergunta se durante o que ele pede para pessoas que durante a pandemia, que conselho ele daria para pessoas que durante a pandemia se sentem frustradas ou tristes ou estejam enfrentando situações muito ruins? Go ahead.
I'd say, even though the social distancing is absolutely important, it doesn't mean you have to cut yourself off entirely from the rest of the world. I mean, like I just spoke about the Gambia, human connection is you need that in your life. That's almost important for me, at least, as food and water. So without that, if you're lacking that in your life, then it's easy to get depressed. It's easy to get down and feel helpless and hopeless. But whether it's FaceTime, whether it's you can still have small groups of people. You can still interact with your friends. You can call them. You can meet up with them. You just have to be smart about it. You can't be having big parties and big groups in close quarters and things like that. But you still should interact with one another. Reach out to your loved ones. And also a thing that's been helping me get through this is I still stick. It's easy to sort of, especially if you're not working right now, or there's a lot of things that are canceled that are typically be going on in your daily routine. It's easy to sort of just get into a lull and lay around the house and, you're just checking your phone, you're watching TV. I've been making myself, waking up at a certain time. I still set an alarm. I still have, I'll make time to cook food. I'll make time to do chores. I'll make time to work out and exercise. Look at that little guy. That's cute.
This is Lua.
Lua. Hey, Lua. But yeah, I think it's just important that you still stick to a routine. I think you'll find that your mental health will greatly benefit from that, instead of just laying around and just every day you just sort of stay in that lull. Sticking with the routine has definitely helped me get through this.
Perfect. Então a pergunta, mais uma vez, né, foi que mensagem ele teria para pessoas que acabam se frustrando ou se sentindo triste com a pandemia. E ele falou que apesar do distanciamento social que é necessário nesse momento, a gente não deve, de forma alguma, se isolar no sentido de não se comunicar com as pessoas, ou seja, telefonar para os amigos, manter em contato através da internet. Ele falou exatamente que a gente deve, nesse momento, né, usar a inteligência, ser esperto e não se deixar levar pela tristeza. Então, o que é muito importante, dentro dessa situação toda, a gente criar e ter uma rotina. Ele mesmo ele cozinha, ele tem as coisas quando ele está em casa e não está trabalhando, que ele faz, que ele procura se organizar para fazer, para não cair no tédio. Well, Nate, I would like to thank you once again. It's been wonderful, really. People are very, very happy. One of the best lives we've had so far.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
And we are very, very proud to have you as our Mr. Supranational.
Thank you.
Of course, I know Italo would have been a great Mr. Supranational as well, but you guys are amazing. So the title is in good hands. I hope you keep doing what you're doing, because you're doing a sensational job. Thank you so much. It was wonderful really knowing the person behind, the sesh. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
You take care. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Pessoal, obrigado por seguirem aqui na live. Fiz o meu melhor aí para poder traduzir tudo da melhor forma possível. Obrigado a todos que enviaram as perguntas antes. Eu não consegui fazer as perguntas que foram enviadas agora, né? Eu já tinha até avisado isso, que seria difícil traduzir, pegar a pergunta e tal. Mas ele é realmente um cara muito bacana. A gente vê que o título está em boas mãos, assim como estaria se tivesse com o nosso Ítalo. Mas é sempre bom ver que se aconteceu, né? A gente ficou um pouquinho triste, feliz com o resultado tremendo do Ítalo, mas que ele acabou perdendo por alguém que é sensacional também e merece o título. E isso é muito bom. Muito orgulho dessa turma toda e dos concursos que a gente representa aí. Muito bom estar com vocês e até uma próxima. Um abraço, boa noite.